demise of the dollar has come very near. It has come closer. Dollar was made the vehicle currency in 1944, and perhaps it was due to the strength of the United States to lead the world economy. In the early decades, United States had a power to produce and consume as maximum as possible. Since it was a very bigger economy, it needed all type of goods. Therefore, the channel of trade was opened through GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. The countries were given the benefit of most favored nations. There will be no discrimination between the goods of one country and the other. Each country has enjoyed this benefit in the GATT. India's partial rise before the GATT was there, it was due to the most favored nations. Secondly, United States was accommodative in terms of import coming from any country because of its large economy and geography. It absorbed all types of goods. When in 1980s United States was recognized as a services producer as well as development of intellectual property rights, the GATT was expected to be converted into new trade body which was WTO, World Trade Organization, which has come into play from 1st January 1995. The trade rules were set by WTO and negotiated in the ministerial committee meeting of the WTO. Any country which has some dispute can be settled through WTO. The things were going very well. But China was quietly rising since 1978 because of the industrialization, but of a nature different than United States. United States is a completely free market economy where individuals have the right to go anywhere, to do anything what they want to do. It is the reason that American had built many multinational companies, and it was because of their efficiency also, because America is technologically very advanced country. It is the leading country in science and technology. It is the leading country in research and development. And it is the leading country in the university system also. Therefore, its focus was on science and technology. Because of these reasons, United States has been accommodating people from all the countries, because whosoever is interested in working in the laboratories was welcome. But China rise was very dubious. First of all, China has not a private capitalism, it is a state capitalism. In the state capitalism, the direction of economic development, particularly, is decided by the state, and the state will decide that which will be profitable and how the people should be engaged and how the population should be controlled. It is all decided by the state. The people have very little freedom to speak against the government in that situation. So China, when it had got humongous population, it was expected to take the work from the population which was built up till 1978, and looking to the huge population and widespread poverty, it wanted the birth control, and therefore since 1978 one child norm was applied in China. The workers were in abundance, and since the planning was rested with the state itself, the China government has built colossal infrastructure, and after building colossal infrastructure, it invited the companies to do the manufacturing, which till then was done by the United States. Since the cost of production was reduced to as minimum as possible by adjusting the labor laws as well as arranging infrastructure for the companies to come, companies were attracted towards China because they could be successful in making the cheaper goods. The wages were controlled, consumption in China was reduced, and the focus was on export. United States had to depend on China for manufactured goods, and also other industrial goods because the production was immense. But when United States was reducing its production, its consumption has not decreased. When China began to increase its growth rate from something which was very negligible to 12% at one point in time, and the goods were also cheaper, United States was accommodative and it has allowed all the goods to come in the country. Since China was also doing trade in the dollars and dollar was considered as a very hard currency, it has accumulated sufficient foreign exchange reserve, and the Chinese currency yuan had a very fixed exchange rate with the dollar, and it was possible because China had got huge trade surplus. The exchange rate can be fixed or almost fixed when any country has got sufficient current account surplus. Now, when United States has a consumption more than the production, or we can say that the import is more than the export, United States started incurring the trade deficit, even though it was compensated with the services surplus, or at least the services were neutralized, but country had got the huge trade deficit. United States has given free run to the corporate sector, and subsidies and tax cuts were possible by the United States. It has built the strong empire of the corporate sector, but unfortunately, it has passed on the baton of manufacturing to China. And after 1919, India also started sharing some space of export in the manufacturing sector because of its own specialization in the labor intensive goods. India is very well dependent on United States for technology and and has got so much potential for the immigration of the Indian. The things started worsening when China became the member of WTO, not in 1995 but in 2001. Now, under WTO, it was possible for China to trade in the manner which was suitable to China, particularly because of the state support to the entrepreneurs as well as the cheaper production. The goods started moving to all the countries, and G7 could also not be spared. They had to bank on China for the goods. China became a supply horse, and all the global value chains started emerging from China because it has built everything which was possible because of the huge workforce. United States did two mistakes, particularly since 1995 when WTO was formed. It kept the tariff rate as low as possible, whereas the other countries applied non-tariff barriers, as well as when they needed the protection, they applied high tariff also. India has been discouraging the import of agriculture and dairy products for the last several years, taking some excuse from United States, and somehow the deal went on. But when Trump came in the first term, he was irritated with the rise of China. He could smell that China has the potential to export, but it is reducing the import as much as possible. The import of the China has reduced because China has also patented some of the products. And secondly, China can do the reverse engineering. Therefore, it has developed the art of manufacturing anything he likes, starting with the assembly of the mobile phone and computers. It started building the manufacturing the parts also. Even though the parts are brought from many countries, and then assembling was done in China, which is now done in India also. But over the period of time, they have manufactured with substantial contribution of their own components in the mobile phone and computers. So its potential had further increased and export capacity was increased. The prices were affordable to an extent. China started doing dumping of the products also. Sometime it has bypassed the WTO rules and it dumps the products in other countries, making lot of foreign exchange. Now after the IT revolution, United States has created the tech companies, but its manufacturing sector or its corporates continue to depend on the tax rebate and the subsidies. Soon, United States has imbalanced budget also, in which the fiscal deficit was very high, and since 1995 its current account deficit has also been ballooning, and it was happening because the balance between the export and import was somehow disturbed due to the rise of the countries like China, India, South Africa, Brazil, and Russia. The dollar was made the currency, universal currency, in 1944 because America at that time had got 75% of the gold with, with it. Therefore, therefore, before 1918, when gold standard was operating as a currency, that import and export was done in terms of the gold. United States currency dollar was also pegged to 35 ounce of gold. It means whenever there will be a threat of devaluation of United States currency, then the United States will have to part with the gold. Since United States is in the habit of fighting war in the far-flung areas, and it has a Cold War also with the USSR for 30 years, its spending on defense has increased drastically. Secondly, United States considered that its power rests with the private entrepreneurs, that is the corporate sector. In the meantime, the middle class workers were left with no option, and they had to sustain their life without considerable wages and all that. The unemployment rate was exposed at the time of dot-com bubble and then subprime mortgage crisis in 2008. It was exposed in COVID also. United States has utterly failed to control the unemployment. The unemployment rate in 1930 during the Great Depression, it was roughly 34-35%, and it was continuously reduced because of the manufacturing sector. Subsequently, when its economy expanded, it has captured the share of service sector, as well as the patents. Patents were developed because of the research on which there is a overriding focus. Now, when the United States has got fiscal deficit, huge fiscal deficit, it has been borrowing through sovereign bonds, and all sort of savers are those who have got the foreign exchange reserve built in form of surplus, are deploying their money with the United States. After COVID, the inflation has once spiked up, which was then when United States was fighting war with the Vietnam, and there was oil crisis in 1973. Inflation has reached to 16%. Now, in any country, when there is a spike in the inflation, the interest rates are also expected to be increased. Federal Reserve, which is the most prestigious autonomous body, has been increasing the interest rates whenever there is an inflation. But Trump does not understand all these things. He felt that if the investment of in housing and consumer goods has to be there, then definitely the interest rates have to be kept as low as possible. Therefore, he has been threatening the Powell that he will dethrone him and bring Federal Reserve under its own control, which of course is not possible because of the monetary role of any bank, central bank in the economy. In second term, he has assured that there will be the tax cuts and the budget will be balanced, and the trade deficit will also be checked. In the first term of Trump, it has paralyzed World Trade Organization, which is a dispute settlement body, and therefore, after keeping tariff as low as possible to accommodate the consumption and the trade deficit being met out of borrowing, this time Trump has decided that it will charge the reciprocal tariff from each country. In the first term also, it imposed the tariff of 25% and 10% on China for import of steel and aluminium. And similarly, it has imposed tariff on India also. But India invoked the GPS, to which Trump agreed, and therefore there was not so much disruption in the export by India because China, because United States accommodated the import, that is the export by the India at 4% tariff rate. This way, India has been getting the trade surplus of roughly $45 billion, whereas the services are neutralized. There is no dispute there. The services supplied by India in terms of particularly the IT and ITES are compensated by the shipping, education, and the other services which United States has got the potential. So current account deficit is primarily due to the trade deficit, which was worrying the Trump, and the countries have felt, other rising countries have felt that we are getting the interest rate when the funds are parked with the United States, because to meet its current account deficit, but interest is promptly given by the government, and therefore investment in United States is considered as a safe haven. China has smelt this thing. Russia also could not be threatened to stop the war with the Ukraine, even though the Trump has tried its best and it has imposed the sanction. Russia, which is rich in natural resources, but it does not allow the countries to move out of its influence. Earlier, it has also attached Georgia and Crimea, and when the Ukraine also decided to join the NATO forces and becomes like the Western European economy, Russia resisted it and it attacked. United States, as usual, is in the habit of imposing the sanction. That is, the flow of dollar from that country will be cut off. It has tried. But the war has gone on for 3.5 years. There is no respite from the war. Russia has already occupied its two important regions, and the war is not coming to an end because war is financed by its plenty of natural resources like coal, petroleum, defense equipments, and fertilizers. These are sufficient to feed the economy and continue with the war. Civil economy is showing some sign of deterioration, but militarily the Russia is very strong, and it was not possible. United States is also threatening China and also found that its rise is dubious and unfair trade practices has given China an opportunity to become the second largest economy and coming closer to the United States. India is an insignificant size of economy in front of China and United States. When India was threatened, that extra 25% tariff duty, apart from what has already been imposed, 25%, will be charged if it continues to buy the oil from Russia. India has to see that its macroeconomic condition does not worsen and its current account deficit also remain under control. It continued to buy the Russian oil. Maybe if it had to buy from Gulf countries, there could be a spike in the prices, and definitely the fear of inflation would have writ large. It has avoided that and continued to buy the Russian oil. And United States felt that Indian Prime Minister Modi is friendly with him, but Trump has forgotten that India has been adopting a non-alignment policy since the days of Cold War, because India has to be benefited in terms of technology, in terms of military support, and other procurements. So, therefore, the policy of non alignment at that time was possible when there were two poles, United USSR and USA. And when the country was liberalized, the India was expected to increase its export, and therefore export could be with United States and it could be with Russia or it could be with any country. Therefore, India remained sincere to the clauses of WTO and it wanted that the fair deal should be there. If someone want to accommodate because of its compulsions, so United States has accommodated it due to GPS. Therefore, the levy was not increased. This time, India was intolerant to 25% of the tariff because it has it would have devastated the export completely. Now, at once upon a time, Trump stated that the India should be counterweight to the China, and how far India could become the counterweight to China, it was not so easy, because when it was the thought of Trump that India has to become the counterweight of China, its size of the economy was $3 trillion, and still so many reforms are yet to be done. India has not done the labor reforms, has not done the land reforms, and the educational system in India is crumbling. This is the reason that the people are going to other countries for medical education, managerial education, and technical education. They are going to the developed country, even they are going to China also. But my point is that India rise is not so easy that the investment will be at par with the China at any one point of time, which was 48%, because the China knows that it has to keep its population on strong footing. Same thing does not prevail in India. Still, roughly around 13 to 14% people are living below poverty level, and multidimensional poverty is very high. India is expected to manage its resources because it has already faced balance of payment crisis in 1991, and the fiscal deficit has created lot of menaces. There was a problem of inflation, deficit financing, and so many things. Therefore, India is treating very carefully but slowly. It can never come to the it can never come close to the China, at least in another 30-40 years, because before anything happens, the demographic dividend has to be reaped very carefully. But once the demographic dividend would be over, then the same problem as that what is happening in China will also start. Now, when there is a news of 25% tariff, and Trump wanted that India should please him because of the ceasefire, he succeeded in Operation Sindoor. India was not ready to accept it, and therefore the situation became complex, and the reciprocal tariff would have never come down to 4%, which was Trump was expecting that India will collaborate or cooperate with United States, and it will take the import of agriculture and dairy produce. The agriculture and dairy produce has become an excuse to an Indian Prime Minister, because 4 years before, the market reforms were done in agriculture, which were withdrawn by the Prime Minister himself. And these could not be rolled down, the things could not take shape. When reforms are done on time and done on the basis of exigencies, definitely the country export can increase, and therefore the trade equations can also be built by the with the other countries. So this time American have also seen that India is just crawling, it is not racing. Otherwise, its investment rate should have gone up to at least 40%, and this was reached at 38% during UPA. Because no reform has been undertaken during the last 11 years of the BJP government, the things have come to stand still, and the investment rate is hanging around at 30%. These are the things which are happening. What I mean to say is that Indian economy is crawling, but it is trying to have some bargain with United States, which is a very strong economy, and whether its term can be agreed or not, the president has become harsh this time and reciprocal tariff has been imposed. India has very little to import from United States, but United States was also failing to keep its house in order. Fiscal deficit and current account deficit was very high. The China has smelt it, and China has seen that the freeze of dollars with Russia could not stop Russia from fighting war with the Ukraine. Now this time, RIC axis has been developed, Russia, India and China. Russia knows very well that it has to fight war for to cut off its own threat from the Western Europe countries, and therefore Ukraine remaining close to Russia is very important. And again, Ukraine is also based on natural resources. And same way, the Eastern European economies are based on the natural resources. Their strength lies there. Otherwise, Eastern Europe will vanish anytime. So India has taken a step which is not diplomatically bad, but economically good, that joining the Russia and China, some trade and some sport will be possible because India has yet to buy S-400 missile system from Russia. So military sport is there, and there was no out on immediate basis. It has joined the Russia and China, ignoring the fact that China has got territorial dispute with India. It has occupied vast territory of India, but still it appears that the Chinese currency is strong and China can provide the investment in India, and some trade can be made common, and export and import will also be smoothened, and things will be set all right. This is the situation which is prevailing. But once the countries have felt that the dollar is an illusionary kind of investment, which has now the countries have seen, the gold prices are rising because the dollar is under threat. So United States will have to recast its policies and its governance system has to improve if the dollar has to continue as the vehicle currency for some time more. Otherwise, the dollar cannot remain the vehicle currency, and fragment currencies will take place like the BRICS and all that. Thank you.